start recording this lesson. Hello, everybody. How are you? Let's go on page 29 of our book.
Okay.
The problem with pronunciation in English is not so heavy for Italian people, but there's something that all Italian people usually they make mistakes. That is, when the words are very long, they don't put the stress in the right place. So sometimes this is quite common that some words are completely mispronounced especially by Italian students. So let's try to see how do you pronounce these words. Okay, let's try one each. Anna Antonella, Chiara, Gianmaria, if you can, Gianmaria, of course, and Maila.
Okay.
29 siamo, prof?
Yes, darling.
Ok.
Ma aspetta, sposto le faccine. Ok.
Yes.
Allora, actually.
Okay. Anto?
Almost.
Apparently.
Basically.
Maila?
Non lo so.
Buttatevi. Non vi correggo io, ve lo faccio sentire dopo. So, this is definitely.
Definitely?
Okay. Anna?
Even?
Eventually.
Fortunately.
Gradually.
Ideally?
Incredibly.
Luckily.
Obviously.
Unfortunately.
Allora, the thing is that very, very seldom the stress is falling on the end of the words. Usually it could be is at the beginning or at least in the first one of the first two syllables, not at the end usually. Like is in French, for example, that all the stress are at the end of the word. In English, they are almost never there, but not even in the last part. But let's listen to the correct pronunciation of them.
.17. Actually.
Almost.
Apparently.
Basically.
Definitely.
Even.
Eventually.
Fortunately.
Gradually.
Ideally.
Incredibly.
Luckily.
Obviously.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so you have, I know that you have noticed some differences in the way you pronounce and in the correct way, but this is very normal. But we have to get used to this longer word and words that are usually, especially for the adverbs. That is the real problem. Okay, let's try now to listen to these sentences and repeat them. Sorry. We do the exercise on the other way around. That is, I let you listen the whole sentence and you repeat the sentence. Try not to be too concentrated on the written words, but try to be more concentrated on the listening. Okay? Because sometimes the writing can distract us from the correct pronunciation. Okay, let's try to do it the usual, like Anna, Antonella, Chiara, Gianmaria, and Mala. Okay,
Okay.
let's start.
.18. 1.
There was a lot of traffic, and unfortunately we arrived extremely late.
There was a lot of traffic and unfortunately we arrived extremely late.
Good.
2.
We definitely want to go abroad this summer, ideally somewhere hot.
We definitely want to go abroad this summer, ideally somewhere hot.
3.
It's incredibly easy. Even a child could do it.
It's incredibly easy. Even a child could do it.
Good.
4.
Mark gradually began to realize that Lily didn't love him anymore.
Mark gradually began to realize that Lily did love him anymore.
Very good.
5.
I thought Roberto was Portuguese, but actually he's Brazilian.
I thought Roberto was Portuguese, but actually he's Brazilian.
6.
Apparently Jack has been offered a promotion at work, but it will mean moving to New York.
Apparently, Jack has been offered a promotion at work, but it will mean moving to New York.
7.
I absolutely love Italian food, especially pasta.
I absolutely love Italian food, especially pasta.
Good. Very good. Bravissimi. Bravi. Vi state lasciando andare. Molto bene. Bravissimi. Ok. Allora, questo naturalmente lo può fare chi desidera. You're going to write a 50-word story. It must be 50 words exactly, not including the title. And you must include at least 2 adverbs. Contracted form count as 1 word. Per cui è proprio il contrario di come qualcuno è abituato a fare per gli esami, non c'entra niente, è un esercizio particolare di scrittura. First, in pairs, so you have to choose 2 of the title below. A Holiday Romance, A Day to Forget, The Lie, Never Again.
Which page is this?
This is page 29.
Of upper intermediate?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And so we can just discuss together what kind of story, for example, Never Again. Chiara, what kind of story could it be?
I prefer an holiday romance.
Holiday romance.
I'm thinking about an holiday romance. Never Again.
Be careful, it's not an holiday romance, but it's a holiday romance.
A holiday romance without N. Okay.
Yeah.
Without, okay.
Because the H is quite strong for holiday.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have to try to Never Again.
Okay, so anyway, of course, this is something you should write.
Okay.
What I'm asking you, if you have time to do them, just write your own story and send it to me if you want. I will correct if there are some mistakes.
Yeah.
And I send them back to you because as soon as they are ready, you can read them to your other colleagues. Okay.
Okay.
Let's try to do it. If you can do it, of course, but it's not compulsory. If you can't, you can't. But it would be nice if you do it. Okay.
But we have to choose just only one of them, or we have to do 4 stories with the
It's up to you. It depends on how long time you have to express yourself. You can even write 4 stories, but because they are very short, they are 50 words, so they are not actually. Okay.
Sì, te ne scrive 4. Ah, sicuro!
Allora che titolo?
Okay, let's go on here. These 2 pages, I'd like you to do it, well, I'd like to jump it, because actually they are quite long, but there are a lot of words and vocabulary that are quite interesting. So what we're going to do now is we are going to look into the glossary. And then I ask you, when you got time to read those 2 pages together, to go on something that I found out that is more interesting than this. Okay, so aimed. Pointed a weapon on something. To aim. Okay, this is aim. Of course, it's not just physical like it is here, but it's also, for example, our aim in life. Muggen. It's a crime of attacking somebody or threatening to do so in order to steal from them. Muggen. Then you got trigger. That's the part of the gun that you press in order to fire it.
Okay.
The trigger. John Wayne, of course, you know, John Wayne. Tough. Strong enough to deal with a difficult situation when you're a very tough person. Okay. And then bushes. Medium-sized plants like small trees, the bushes. I think that you already know some of them, probably not muggen or trigger, but tough, bushes, and aim. I think they are words that you know. So this is quite...
Che era deal?
Cosa?
Quale?
Deal. Strong enough to deal.
Oh, trattare.
Ok.
Strong enough to deal with a difficult situation. Affrontare, trattare. Deal. Ok, allora questo per cui se voi lo leggete chiaramente anche senza sentirlo non ha importanza in questo caso, perché adesso andiamo a fare, è un articolo e poi non solo articoli, scusate, sono tratti da libri. Per i libri io vi volevo dire questa cosa. Qui vi mette in this box when they are talking about graded readers. That is from Oxford Bookworm. Of course, I'm not gonna do the advert of these books, but actually they are very good. I can show you this. Let me, where I am, okay. Okay, here. You see, this is the page of the Oxford University Press, as you know, of course, is the editor of our of the book we are using, but they do a lot, really a lot. It's the biggest teaching and more than teaching, learning editor, and is the first one in England and probably in the world. So it's a very good, it's a very big company, and they are issuing these graded readers. That means they are real books made, of course, for learning according to various level. And they are very good. If you want to read and find something online, you can go on here. I will share this link. So if you want to see it, because they are very good. of course, for me, it's basic because there's plenty of teaching resources, but even learning resources, they are really, you see, learning resources that we have here. Like, you know, and you go on so many. They got even some very good audio books. For example, you see Jane Eyre, that is their audiobooks, so you can just listen to them. And I think that in this period, it could be very useful. You got the selection.
It's possible to listen even on through internet or not? No.
Yes, yes.
It's possible.
Yes, yes, because they are connected to Audible. They got many connection. If you go and you explore the site, there's a lot of something that you can understand. Some of them, they are free of charge, and some of them, if you ask me, for example, I got so many books of them, so if you ask me something, probably I can share something with you as well. Okay, let's go on. Even with, I don't know, I got some PDF or other books that I can share it with you if you are interested in reading something. And they are divided into levels. The level that you are doing now is level 6. So the things, the extract from this book, from our book, this one, is, okay, here they say, is level 6. That is quite a good level. That means that you can take anything that is starting from level 1 up to level 6. You can read everything. You can start even with level 1 if you don't feel confident to get directly on a book of level 6, but you are able to do it. Okay, let's go on this one. Oh, this is very nice. And there's some interview. Okay, so we have, now read this biographical information about Julia Eccleshare and look at the book covers. Okay, Anto, could you please read it?
Julia Eccleshare is a well-known British journalist and a writer on the subject of children's book. She has been children's book editor for The Guardian newspaper since 2000. She regularly appears as a judge of chair of judges on some of the major children's books prizes and is particularly interested in how to encourage children and young people to read. Julia was awarded to Eleanor Fairgem Prize in 2000 in recognition of her outstanding contribution to children's book. She has 4 children and lives in London.
Okay, have you ever read some of her books?
No, never.
No. Okay, now we are going to watch, if I can do it, the part 1 of an interview. And you have just to tell me, she's mentioning these 4 books. Warrior Scarlet, Little House on the Prairie, Mouse House, and Northern Lights. You have to tell me why does she mention them. Okay, so now I'm going to try to share the video. Let me see. See and read it. See and listen to it.
Abbiamo perso.
No, yes, I saw it.
Ecco.
Yeah, because if I'm going larger, you lose the share.
Non ti devi allargare, prof. Resta
in the real sense. Okay, so let's go in Little. I live in Little. That is better.
Okay.
When you were a child.
It seems very difficult thinking back.
What was your favourite book when you were a child?
It's always very difficult thinking back to one's favourite book as a child because different times were different favourite books. But the book that I remember best, that I go back to in times of wanting to have a quiet moment of reflection, is a book by Rosemary Sutcliffe called Warrior Scarlet. And why it appealed to me, it's very hard to say. It's about a boy with a withered arm in the Iron Age who can't get his place in the tribe because he can't kill a wolf. I probably read it once a year, even now.
Even now?
Well, yes, because there is a special thing about reading a book that you loved as a child. It takes you back to that time. You typically, if you ask people about their favourite book as a child, or the book that made them a reader, which I think is another way of looking at it, they can remember a fantastic amount about it. They can often remember who gave it to them, or who read it to them, or where they read it, and I have exactly that experience with that book.
When you were a small child, who read to you? Your mother or your father?
Well, I'm the third of 4 children, and this is a terrible thing to say, but I don't think anybody read to me. I think I remember listening in on my older sisters being read to. So I was the youngest of 3 girls, and then I've got a younger brother. And I very much remember my mother reading the Laura Ingalls Wilder Little House on the Prairie sequence to my brother. And that's when I heard them too. I certainly never had them read to me. And then my father read me Rumer Godden's Mouse House. And again, this is a very profound memory, probably because he didn't actually very often read aloud. So it's logged in my brain as something that he read to me.
And who read to you? You or your husband?
Well, that's interesting, because if I think back to it, I think perhaps because I worked in books and my husband didn't, he seems to have done more of the reading aloud than I did. He loved reading aloud. He has incredible stamina for it, and he would read for an hour quite happily. I think at the end of a working day, it was quite a nice thing for him to do.
Do you have a favourite children's writer?
I think my favourite author at the moment is Philip Pullman. I think he gave us a classic book in Northern Lights, the first of his Dark Materials trilogy, which opened up to a very wide range of children what imaginative fiction can be at its best. And there's nothing that Philip has written that isn't interesting, beautifully crafted, surprising, and a story that you reflect on. He raises so many questions, giving openings for children to think. That's the best kind of writing as far as I'm concerned. So if you ask me now of a contemporary writer, he would be the person who I think is the greatest.
Okay, so let's I was silencing some of you because there were some noises coming into the microphone. So please now come back to. Yes.
Mi è successo di tutto, è suonato il cellulare, il telefono, Maurizio mi ha parlato.
Tutto, alla fine.
Comunque non è che a una certa puoi non piazzare i sottotitoli, bella.
Come non piazzare? Non c'è bisogno.
Io mi sono persa, non ho capito niente.
A me mi sono cascati gli occhi.
Ma cosa stai dicendo? What are you talking about? No, che
c'è scritto che dobbiamo sentirlo di nuovo.
Ah, ok. E poi avete visto che io volendo posso anche farvi scorrere il testo sotto?
Volendo.
A me mi si è apparsa una finestra nera comunque.
Anche a me.
Non so che fatto.
No, allora la colpa è sempre la vostra, ovviamente.
Ok.
No, perché siccome io sentivo dei rumori,
colpa mia.
Esatto, sono andata a silenziare, a vedere chi era, cioè no, a silenziarvi tutti quanti, però per fare questo mi si è interrotta la condivisione per un attimo.
Che attimo, c'era davanti una finestra.
Era un libro, c'era davanti la pagina, la copertina di un libro.
Ah, ecco.
Vabbè, tanto io non ho capito niente uguale.
Allora, andiamo
per quello.
Comunque, la prima
Ma volendo
parte
i sottotitoli?
ve li metto, ve li metto.
Brava,
Brava, mi piace.
Però
brava,
guardate che non era così male. Questa comunque era solo la prima parte.
Forte Roma Milano mi piace molto.
Vi ricordate perché? Why does she mention these 4 books? Where is Scarlett?
Porco Giuda.
Perché l'ha menzionato?
Perché dunque sono delle cose che, cioè, che rimangono in mente ai bambini.
Allora, sicuramente è la prima cosa di cui ha parlato.
Ok.
Parlava qualcosa a proposito dei bambini e del fatto che era legata, non ho ben capito il senso, al fatto che...
No, hai capito benissimo. Sì, sì, che era proprio
ok.
legata a questo
Ecco,
titolo in particolare.
esatto. Poi però ho concentrato troppo sul seguito della...
Ok.
A me mi sembra di aver capito che lei abbia detto che ognuno è, diciamo, è indirizzato, è indicato per delle diverse età. No, mi sbaglio?
Anche per l'età, sì, ha detto parecchie cose perché era abbastanza lunga e parla
Parlava un
soprattutto
po' veloce.
non dei suoi libri, ma di questi altri libri che hanno segnato la sua vita. Una grossa parte lei ha parlato del fatto
del papà, della mamma.
Bravo,
I
bravissimo.
libri che leggevano con la madre e con il padre.
Esatto, se lei ha avuto dei libri particolari che le venivano letti da bambina.
Esatto.
No?
Ha detto con la madre e con i fratelli e col padre.
Yeah, that was
Tre
quite
sorelle, un
unusual.
brother.
Yes, because she was the third of 4 children, and she had 2 elder sisters and 1 smaller brother. And so they didn't have so much time to read to the children, of course, the parents. But still, she had some books that she remembers.
Yes.
Okay, now let's try to watch the video again. And I try to let you go down with the subtitles. In this way, let me see if... yes, I can show the subtitles. Okay, let's see if it's working in this way. Silent yourself, so everybody.
Brava, silent ci tu.
No, you can. Okay, I can silent you. Okay, good.
Cioè, tu puoi
Yes, I can. Okay. But interrupt if there's anything that goes wrong.
What was your favourite book when you were a child?
It's always very difficult thinking back to one's favourite book as a child because different times were different favourite books. But the book that I remember best, that I go back to in times of wanting to have a quiet moment of reflection, is a book by Rosemary Sutcliffe called Warrior Scarlet. And why it appealed to me is very hard to say. It's about a boy with a withered arm in the Iron Age who can't get his place in the tribe because he can't kill a wolf. I probably read it once a year, even now.
Even now?
Well, yes, because there is a special thing about reading a book that you loved as a child. It takes you back to that time. Typically, if you ask people about their favourite book as a child, or the book that made them a reader, which I think is another way of looking at it, they can remember a fantastic amount about it. They can often remember who gave it to them, or who read it to them, or where they read it, and I have exactly that experience with that book.
When you were a small child, who read to you? Your mother or your father?
Well, I'm third of 4 children, and this is a terrible thing to say, but I don't think anybody read to me. I think I remember listening in on my older sisters being read to. So I was the youngest of 3 girls, and then I've got a younger brother. And I very much remember my mother reading the Laura Ingalls Wilder Little House on the Prairie sequence to my brother. And that's when I heard them too. I certainly never had them read to me. And then my father read me Rumer Godden's Mouse House. And again, this is a very profound memory, probably because he didn't actually very often read aloud. So it's logged in my brain as something that he read to me.
And who read to your children, you or your husband?
Well, that's interesting, because if I think back to it, I think perhaps because I worked in books and my husband didn't, he seems to have done more of the reading aloud than I did. He loved reading aloud. He has incredible stamina for it, and he would read for an hour quite happily. I think at the end of a working day, it was quite a nice thing for him to do.
Do you have a favourite children's writer?
I think my favourite author at the moment is Philip Pullman. I think he gave us a classic book in Northern Lights, the first of his Dark Materials trilogy, which opened up to a very wide range of children what imaginative fiction can be at its best. And there's nothing that Philip has written that isn't interesting, beautifully crafted, surprising, and a story that you reflect on. He raises so many questions, giving openings for children to think. That's the best kind of writing as far as I'm concerned. So if you ask me now of a contemporary writer, he would be the person who I think is the greatest.
Okay. Come back to your sound. Come back. Okay. So now I think it was very clear what she was talking about. And of course, if we are going to see the true or false sentences, number one, Chiara.
Julia has one reread the Warrior Scarlet one scene. She was a child. Hai letto solamente una... It's false.
It is false.
Yeah.
Why? Because she say what? She actually say that she's reading this book at least once a year, even now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Myla.
She thinks people have very clear memories about books they loved as children. Very clear memories about books they loved as children. True.
True, it's true, yes. Because they are the first memory that they have, so usually they are very clear. And Gian Maria?
Her parents read to her a lot when she was a child. It's false because she said the books read with your brothers.
Yes, the books were read to the sisters or the brothers, and she was listening to them. But actually, the parents just very rarely they were reading something directly to her. Very good. Okay, Anna.
Her husband didn't want to read to the children at the end of a long day. It's true. It's true. Her
No.
husband.
No, it's false.
It's false.
False. Her husband
didn't want.
Didn't want. Okay.
Okay, so it's false because he did.
He did.
Yes.
Okay.
She used even a word like he had a lot of stamina.
Stamina, what is?
It's energy.
Energy.
Okay. A lot of energy even after a long working day. He could find out, because I mean, to read to other people, you need a lot of energy because you have to be involved in and like acting. Okay, good. And Anto 5.
One of the things she loves about Philip Pullman's books is that they make children think. It's true, because it gives to children a lot of questions, and so they can talk about it and can answer. So it's true.
It is true. So look at the glossary. Warrior, of course, you know what a warrior is. His Dark Material trilogy. It's even a series they are going to, you find it on TV. There are 3 fantasy novels by this author, Philip Pullman, consisting Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. A film based on Northern Light was released in 2007 called The Golden Compass. And now on TV, there's this His Dark Materials. I started actually to watch it, but I'm not so keen with the fantasy genre, so I couldn't follow it really good, but it seems that if you love fantasy genre, you can go on it. Okay, now we are going to watch part 2, and she's going to mention these 3 books. Jacqueline Wilson, Hetty Feather, Harry Potter by, of course, J.K. Rowling, and The Bitch, that is probably taken from a book. Okay, so we are going without subtitle, of course, because otherwise it's too easy. Just give me the order 1, 2, and 3.
What do you think is the one big thing that helps to make a child a reader?
One of the extraordinary things about reading that isn't talked about enough, I think, there's a lot of talk about how children learn to read and all of this, but actually, and what strategy might be best, but actually, what makes a reader a book? It's finding the book that you really want to read. And so that's the chemistry, that's the chemical moment when a child finds something that they really want to read.
Teenagers can also be quite negative about reading. What do you think can help inspire teenagers to read?
Well, I think the biggest inspiration, well, I would like to say, again, to get back to the idea that it is the right book, but I think there are lots of ways into reading. And one of the things that's very evident is that good films, far from putting children off reading the book, often take children or teenagers to read the book. You take a book like The Beach, all right, it wasn't a book that was written for children, but it was a great teen novel. It was a sort of almost a teen anthem novel. And a lot of teenagers read the book after they'd seen the film.
How do you feel about children reading books which are badly written?
What I certainly wouldn't do is make judgments about quality of writing. One of the weirdest things that happens in children's books is that as soon as a child finds an author that they love, the parents tend to think it's not suitable, because they think if the child is loving it, it's too easy or too trivial or too whatever. And Jacqueline Wilson is a very good example of this. She's an author who girls particularly found and loved for years, and it's taken the parents a very long time to realise that she is a very good author. And what do you say about someone like J.K. Rowling, who is, not a great literary stylist, but has some really remarkable qualities in her books, and will be credited over probably 3 more generations for having made children readers. I wouldn't want to say children shouldn't have read her books because they're not of great literary quality.
Okay. So, how was the order? Come back. You're silent.
I've lost the
Myla.
first. I've lost the first.
The first is The Beach.
Yes, the first was The Beach. Number one was The Beach, the book where the film was taken. And then
A.
A, yes.
The last was Harry Potter.
Yes, was Harry Potter. But let's try to see which is the right answer now. Okay, go Mila.
The one big thing that she thinks makes a child rather is reader is learning to read early. Find the right book is no, finding the right book.
Yes, just finding the right book. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay, Gian Maria.
When the teenagers have seen the film, it makes them want to read the book. When the teenagers have seen a film, often makes them want to read the book.
Yes, quite often she found that a lot of people, after seeing a film, they became more curious and they want even to read a book. Not before, but after, because they know the story, they know everything, and they want to know more on it. Okay, Anna.
Parents sometimes think that children shouldn't read books which are difficult. Shouldn't read the book.
Shouldn't, yes, they think they shouldn't. And that was the example of this writer, because they say that was too difficult as a writing. Whilst actually they say that there's no too difficult, it's just a matter of to be involved in the story, in the book. Okay, and Anto?
Jacqueline Wilson is an example of an author who used to think was very good, but parents shouldn't. Is an example of an author who come mi sono persa.
Io questa non ho proprio sentita.
No, mi sono persa, sono dovuto andare alla prima porta a gatto. Vabbè, ma non importa. Non importa.
Allora non lo puoi sapere, te lo racconta Chiara, dai.
Perché io già non ho proprio
Jacqueline
sentita.
Wilson is an example of an author who parents used to think was very good, but children didn't.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's the opposite. Because children used to think that was very good, but parents didn't, because they thought it was too difficult.
Okay.
Okay. And last one, Antonella, you were back here. So, yeah.
Julia thinks that children shouldn't only read books which are of high literacy quality. Should only read books that abbi fede per i bambini leggono i libri di high literacy quality.
Shouldn't, yes, of course, shouldn't, because the quality of the literacy and the literary quality is not just the only reason of a good book. And she's just using the example of Harry Potter books that actually she said they are not written in a very top quality as a high literary quality, but they have other qualities that are very interesting, and so nobody can judge which is the quality, and that you should just read those quality books. You know, I'm translating a lot of, not a lot, but quite a few children books in English. Yes. I've translated.
Comunque la saga di Harry Potter è amatissima all over the world proprio.
Yes, yes, all over the world. In
for For example, I don't like that kind of films. I don't like. Probably reading the book is different, but this kind of film I don't like. It's too fantasy.
The fantasy film.
Mm.
As I told you, I'm not keen on fantasy, but if they are very well done, I mean, like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a sort of fantasy, but it's not just fantasy, it's just a mixture of various styles. So it depends, but the pure fantasy, I don't like it either. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it depends, because there are so many elements that you have to consider if you'd really like a book or a film, it's the same. Okay, let's see this glossary. A teen anthem. First of all, what is an anthem? For example, the Italian anthem is Fratelli d'Italia, l'Italia.
L'inno.
Yeah, it's the anthem. Okay, the anthem. So a teen anthem is a song in which people strongly identify with. So you can understand much better in this way. A literary stylist is a writer who writes in a very literary style. Okay, these are two words that she say about. But then we are going to get into part 3.
Un attimo, che devo dare chiudere la porta, aspetta.
Pratico dalle parti.
To help you in following now this video, try to focus now on the question that are, does she read print books, e-books, or both? Does she think people will read fewer books because of all the new technology? Does she still read for pleasure? And now we're doing a work that is allowing us to understand better this part. That is, we discussed together those questions. For example, Chiara, do you read print books, e-books, or both?
I prefer print books.
Print books.
Yes.
Yeah. What about the other? Anna?
I prefer e-books
now. Recently? Yes.
Recently, yes. Because I read in the evening when I was in bed, when I am in bed. So the e-books, it's better.
Yeah, it's much better.
But
yes,
you can hear the smell of the paper.
Yeah, sure. In your mind.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have read so many books that now this is a myth. I mean, this smell of the paper, come on. It's true, but it's not the only thing that allow you. But anyway, I'm favorable to ebooks, so I couldn't say that. Okay, and you, Antonella?
I prefer print books because I have any problems with some problems with the eyes if I stay too much in front of the video. So I prefer print books.
Yes, but you know that now there are some, for example, some Kindle, they are just made, yes.
Retroilluminati, come
Hanno
si
uno schermo
illuminated.
protetto, no?
Yes,
uno schermo protetto in modo che fa carino.
So, and actually they're even better for people who's got sight problem, because you can make it the characters bigger or smaller according to your needs, and even the back of the page could be in different colors and different nuance depending on what you prefer, if it's darker or lighter. So actually you could try the latest issue on those e-books. And you, Myla?
print books because I like touch paper, and I don't like to open very much the book. I open.
You're afraid to spoil them.
Yeah, yes.
You
But
respect books so much.
the e-books was very practice because you can search word. For example, when I read in English and I don't know the meaning of a term, I use
the glossary.
I
the
touch
dictionary.
and immediately I have the comprehension of the word.
Yeah, especially when you're reading in another language that is not your own one. It's very convenient.
When I read on the plane, for example, we don't have a connection and we don't can't search the meaning.
Yeah.
Because we don't have internet.
Yes, of course.
And anyways,
yes, but sometimes you don't need internet because it's inside your device.
Yes, yes, it's perfect. But I don't like the book.
Physical.
I like the paper, but
I see. You were saying, Anto?
Anyway, it's a pleasure to go to the bookshop and to choose the books and to see the summary before buying. I prefer to go to the. I prefer to spend some time in the bookshop.
I chose the cover of the book because there are different type or.
Forse sono antica, non so dite, però io sono antica.
No. It's a matter of experience. And you, Gian Maria?
I love technology. For me, is more important. But I don't know why. For the reading a book, I prefer the paper. I don't know why. I think that the sense.
Yes, I think it's something that is connected to all our senses because the more senses are involved in an activity, the more we are involved. So with a paper book, of course, you got your touch, you got the smell, you got a sight, you don't have the taste.
But you can also write, I don't know, sottolineare. Underline some notes that
even
you
on
love in that moment.
Yes, even in the e-books.
Yeah.
In all, I mean,
but you don't use a pen, a pencil.
You can do it with a pen, of course. The pen just appropriate for that. You can use it. I mean, what Gian Maria say is true. That I'm much older than Gian Maria, and I love technology, but I was really a fond reader. I remember hours and hours spending in Charing Cross bookshops. You know, Charing Cross is the way where there are all the bookshops. And usually when I was living in London, my habit was on Saturday morning going to Charing Cross to a couple of 2 or 3 bookshops, and I was spending there hours finding out books because there were even very cheap books, secondhand books, and I was really spending their hours. And even the things that Myla is mentioning from the cover, I remember I discovered one of my favorite writers just by the cover. I remember I was in an airport and I was looking for a very quick book to read on the flight, and that cover was just hitting me, and was the cover of in English, I don't know how do they translate it, but in Italian was Il Paradiso degli Orchi by Daniel Pennac, that is a French writer, and I didn't know anything about that book. I was just hit by the cover, and I bought it, and was the beginning of a fantastic love story within me and the writer, obviously just ideal love story. But you know, nevertheless, I know that some changes are necessary in life and in our history. So now I'm not reading almost anything in paper because I'm always reading ebooks. But I think that we should stay in the middle. Let's see what does she thinks about it. If she's reading ebooks, print books, or both, if she thinks that people will read fewer books because of the all new technology, and does she's if she still read for pleasure. I'm sure she does.
For the most part, do you read paper books or e-books?
I'm almost entirely a print book reader, but that's not out of prejudice. That's just out of the fact that I get sent all the books, so it's easy for me to find the book I want to read and pick it up. I read on my iPad sometimes. I think we ought to sort of stop seeing the two in polarity. I think, you know, everybody is going to read both. I read the newspaper online and I read it in print on the weekends. I think we're all just going to get very used to reading in different ways.
Has all the new media made young people read less?
When television first hit, as it were, everyone said children would stop reading. And the curious thing is that children's books and even books for teenagers are stronger now, much stronger than they were when children's television first took hold. Children's television has slightly dwindled, books have increased. So the book has always been under threat from these other media, but somehow reading survives. So there must be something very important about it, or it would have gone. We would all have taken to seeing things in film, which is a much easier way of accessing the same wonderful stories. Or I always think the thing that really threatens reading is listening to music. I know you can do both, but most people don't. But, you know, even with the explosion of music that children have access to, they still have found time for reading.
Do you still read for pleasure?
Well, I still do read for pleasure, but it's harder to get back to that magical experience, which I do remember very clearly from childhood. I do remember that being totally absorbed in the book. But as you get older, it's just harder to carve out time like that, and there's always something else pressing. And of course, that's got more so if, you know, I have a BlackBerry, I look at it all the time, and I have to stop myself doing that if I'm going to enter this amazing fictional world. So for me, the place that it really works best is a long train journey, because I don't have to look at anything. I can be out of my ordinary life, and I can just have that experience of getting completely lost in the story. But it only really works when the story comes to you and you have that kind of chemical moment when the story grabs you and you know you're not going to stop until you've got to the end of it, or whatever, you know you want to read it as long as possible. So I can still read for pleasure, but I have to find the right book.
Okay. So I think it was very interesting this. And then she was replying to all the things. She was using a lot of words, quite interesting, even a lot of ways. For example, the use of do in positive sentences. Do you notice it?
Yes, I have noticed. It's just the things that I have noticed in my last exercise.
Yeah, that's it. That's why I mentioned it. Just
exactly.
to, you know, highlight something that to get it stronger. Okay, so what is she referring to when she says the following things? I think we are, or to sort of, stop seeing in the two polarity. I think, you know, everybody's going to read both. What is she referring to, Anna?
I don't understand. What is she referring to quando dice quelle cose?
Yes.
I think we are... A che cosa si riferisce? Children people?
No?
No, non capisco la domanda.
Ok. Sì, in pratica la domanda è sempre la stessa. A cosa si riferisce quando dice queste cose?
Se queste cose.
Cioè, a che cosa faceva riferimento con questa frase? Di che cosa stava parlando?
Sono frasi diverse però.
Sì, sì,
Cioè,
certo, certo. Questa era tutta una
I think
affermazione.
we are. Sort of, stop seeing the two.
Oh, tu, prof, cos'era?
Dovere, morale.
Bravo.
Moral, yes. It's like must, but it is a moral obligation.
Yes.
No, non so.
Che dici, Chiara?
Book.
Questa mi è rimasta in mente questa frase proprio perché non capivo neanche O2 e polarity.
Allora, questo è il motivo per cui noi non ci sembra almeno di non capire delle cose, perché ci fermiamo e ci concentriamo su alcune cose che non abbiamo capito, per cui chiudiamo il canale comunicativo e non sentiamo il resto. Ma la cosa più importante in questa frase è everybody's going to read both. Both a cosa si riferisce?
Ebook o printer book?
Brave, era questa la risposta.
Ok.
E invece voi siete andate, you got stuck in the first part where there are so many words that probably you don't know. And that's why it's non dovete, cioè dovete cercare, quando cercate di capire una cosa, farvi più furbi. Nel senso che se non capite alcune cose, non è detto che quelle cose che voi non capite siano quelle centrali che vi spiegano il pensiero, perché la gente parla, ma poi il pensiero centrale viene detto magari in 2 parole, che sono quelle che voi potete capire, e tutto il resto è di accompagnamento.
Lei aveva un linguaggio molto ricco da scrittrice comunque.
Bravissima, esatto,
quindi,
è proprio questo.
Io ho trovato difficoltà nel capirla.
Infatti avete visto, vi ho messo i sottotitoli questa volta, non è stato
proprio
casuale.
perché questa frase mi è rimasta in mente, ho detto, che vuol dire?
Certo, però non ti devi focalizzare su una frase o su una parte di frase, no?
Okay.
No!
Adesso solo everybody's going to read both.
Esatto, l'avresti capito al volo, certo, il livello, insomma, è per quello che si distingue dagli altri.
Ma perché lei stava facendo una comparison between the
two sides of reading, yes. So, for example, number 2, so the book has always been under threat from these other media. What is she referring?
So the book has always been under threat from these other media.
Il fatto che
teenager. To teenager and the fact they read fewer respect before.
Yes, actually it was the comparison if the technology affected the way. So the book has always been under threat from this other media because she was starting to speak about the television.
Television, music and technology in general.
Yes.
Anche il fatto che i ragazzi sono magari più presi dalla televisione e quindi forse leggono meno e magari, per dire, si lasciano prendere più dal film, o comunque preferiscono vedere il film piuttosto che leggere il libro, forse questo, quindi per questo che i ragazzi leggono meno.
Okay, of course. When television first started, people said that children would stop reading and watch TV. That actually didn't happen. I mean, it didn't at first, but now she say that children are reading much more now than when the television started. Okay, so it's like a way you're getting used to, so you're just trying to keep your old habits. What about, I know you can do both, but most people don't.
That people can both read and watch television, but most people don't do.
It wasn't for watching television, it's another thing.
Listen music?
Yes, was listening music. You know, you reading and listening to music at the same time. But if you, as you get older, it's just harder to carve out time like that. There's always something else pressing. What it was about it? Carve out time. Very nice word.
What does it mean?
Carve è scavare, no?
Yes.
Incidere, ma carve out non lo so.
Carve out è ritagliarsi dal tempo.
Okay.
We use in reflexive way. In Italian we have got so many reflexive
Ritagliarsi
del tempo. Ritagliare del tempo. But it's consider what was referring about.
When you get older, it's just hard, è più difficile ritagliarsi del tempo.
To do what?
To read.
To read for pleasure. It's harder to find out, to get absorbed in the book, as you always have other things you have to do. And you have that kind of chemical moment when the story grabs you.
Quando il libro ti prende,
Yes.
tu non riesci più a finire. She has told that she likes to read when she's on a train journey.
And you want to
go
right to the end.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, she means that you suddenly got a feeling that you must know how the story finishes. And that you will carry on reading until you do, until you can.
Quindi abbiamo capito, Abbiamo capito.
Sì.
Bravi.
Malgrado io sia una sega elettrica.
La sudata, però insomma abbiamo capito la scrittrice.
Come ti ho scritto che sto veramente un disastro.
Oggi naturalmente abbiamo fatto un po' di esercizio di comprensione e ascolto, perché è una cosa che prima di tutto si fa poco, ma è difficile anche fare in condivisione, anche in rete. Invece diciamo che questo è un sistema che ci permette di ascoltare e più che altro di discutere insieme quello che noi riusciamo a capire, perché è una grossa fetta del diventare fluent in English è capire. Quando noi iniziamo a capire, entriamo dentro e poi, come avete visto alla fine, eravate tutti quanti coinvolti nell'argomento. Certo, bisogna trovare un argomento interessante per tutti. Quello dei libri più o meno, insomma, può essere uno degli argomenti. Ok, dear people, I give you a big kiss and I see you soon. On Friday, on Thursday if you want. Remember that I got the Thursday evening lesson.
At 5:30 in the afternoon?
5:30, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. With other people. Okay, you're welcome. Myla, for you, when you wish. Ok.
Grazie.
Ok, ciao a tutti. And
bye.
Gian Maria, ciao, bye bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.